Super Mario 3D All-Stars is a collection of prior 3D Mario games that aims to appeal to those who are digging into their wallets to spend some money on some nostalgia. Inside this collection houses some of Nintendo's best work: Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. The difference I have from most reviewers is, unlike most civilized journalists who have played their fair share of Mario 64, Galaxy, and this, I have never played these games, and the dislike ratio just got a lot worse after I said that statement. Please hear me out. I'm young, I don't have the money or really commitment to hunt down an N64, GameCube, never mind, or Wii, never mind. I mean, I could always use but sometimes a man wants to enjoy those new, fresh experiences without stressing if the FBI will barge down on my door. But since every soul on this planet except me has played these games, it's time to go in with an open mind and completely blind beginning as I play these classics of the past. Reviewers have already played these games, and therefore it's more of just a blast of the past rather than truly analyzing a first experience. Oh, and by the way, we are gonna go full in-depth, nothing is off limits, so spoilers for these games that are over a decade old, I guess. This is Super Mario 3D All-Stars Crazy or Lazy.
It's me, Mario!
Super Mario 64 is a revolutionary launch title that released on the Nintendo 64, which is another name for a Nintendo console I would not like to own. This console is just weird to me. Like, who at Nintendo thought it was a good idea to design a controller where you can't access all the buttons at the same time? But Super Mario 3D All-Stars isn't on the Nintendo 64. I would be concerned if it was. Instead, it's on the Nintendo Switch with a more than justifiable controller to be able to control the game with. Well, I guess unless you play with those things. Now, I was curious to see how well this game stacked up against the newer 3D Mario games, as this game has been under scrutiny for its more than dated controls, design, graphics, basically everything. You have to remember though, this is 1996, the year America voted for a second term for Bill Clinton. So do you really expect mind-blowing results? But let's start from the beginning. The story is pretty simple.
Mario's King Koopa has kidnapped the Peach.
We are immediately propelled out of a pipe and are launched into gameplay. I really like this, as the game doesn't waste its time getting you into the action. But this right here is one of Super Mario 64's biggest strengths right out of the gate. Mario's moveset, the versatility of Mario. You jump here, there, everywhere. It feels so natural, and the movement of Mario is so fun. You see, I grew up with this laughingstock, and I didn't really understand the hate for Super Mario 3D World at the time. It's a great game, but as the only 3D Mario game for the system, it really suffered to stand out from its handheld counterpart Super Mario 3D Land. And the movement in that game is much more restricted, locking the player to only 12 directions and just a handful of moves that Mario has in 64. And the controls in this game aren't that bad. Yeah, sometimes you want to chuck your controller out the window, but I would blame that more on the level design rather than the controls. More on that later. Before we get to the base game, how well is the port job to Switch? Nintendo said to themselves, let's just keep it at an aspect ratio that is irrelevant on modern times. Even though we gave Sunshine widescreen support, Nintendo, what's going on here? You didn't give Mario 64 widescreen, but Sunshine got it? Why? If you're going to put the effort for Sunshine, you might as well go the full 9 yards and give Super Mario 64 widescreen. And the game only runs in 720p. I don't like Nintendo anymore. Galaxy and Sunshine have a full 1080p, but 64 is locked at 720p. Well, I'd at least expect them to upgrade the frame rate. That would already make this a definitive version of Super Mario 64. I hate Nintendo. 720p, 4:3 aspect ratio, 30 frames per second. This is inexcusable. Sure, they updated some of the in-game textures, which does wonders in making the game not look so rough, but if it takes fans only days to get Mario 64 running with smooth widescreen support and 60 frames per second, how can the richest company in Japan be so stupid? I mean, it's fine, but underwhelming and screams low effort to me. Another thing I wish they fixed is the low poly Mario. In the original, when the camera would zoom far out, Mario would be replaced with this low poly version of him, as to keep things running smoothly on the N64. But because of the low resolution, it was almost impossible to notice if you weren't actively looking for it. But now, with crisp HD, it's really obvious to see when this happens. Stuff like this, which are small but could have gone a long way just to iron out the experience. Other notable additions, or I should say exclusions, is the absence of the backwards long jump glitch used for speedrunners, and worst of all, I'm writing. I want to move on from that and talk about the level design. We arguably here have some of the most iconic stages of gaming. Bob-omb Battlefield, Jolly Roger Bay, Whomp's Fortress, Peach's Castle. The castle itself acts as a hub world to all of the 120 stars the game has. However, you only need to collect 70 of the stars to beat the game, which is still quite a lot. Peach's Castle is cool, maybe not as amazing as other people make it out to be, but remember, I'm just some puny high schooler, what do I know? You jump through the designated painting and unlock stars. Now what is cool is that you can technically go out of order. If you notice a secret of some kind and want to nab it, the game will not stop you from getting a star early, though this won't happen too often as you won't have a hint until you complete the next star before it. When selecting a star, each mission has a name which usually gives away roughly what you should be doing. One last note, some of these stars in general are super easy. All they require you is to break this block, boom, star. The amount of filler just adds on to the padding in play here, which is made worse in a couple of other ways which I'll be sure to go over. Now onto the stage themes themselves. Oh look guys, we don't have one snow world, but 2 snow worlds. That's what I wanted most this Christmas, not 1 but 2 snow worlds. Yeah, the actual setting of these stages aren't too awfully interesting, and the stage layouts themselves, This is where we come across some of the problems, notably in the game design. Some stages just feel more annoying to figure out how to play. Notably, examples include Hazy Maze Cave and Wet Dry World. Let's start with Hazy Maze Cave. As implied in the title, it's a maze and boy does it just not work. A lot of the stars are pretty cryptic and don't have a ton of clues on what the heck you're supposed to do. I wouldn't mind this, but the cave is so confusing that I couldn't repeat my same path no matter how hard I tried to remember. I also think the general look of it is just plain ugly. Just smearing textures on the ground and calling it a day. Wet Dry World is definitely better from a puzzle aspect, though if you don't know what you're doing, like me, then it can be extremely confusing. The whole gimmick is that you can control the level of the water and the puzzles are built upon that idea. But I don't know, if you are a stupid little kid in the 90s with an IQ of 10, I don't know how you would be able to grapple your mind behind this stage. Even now, it's still a bit of a chore to lay everything out and understand what you need to know. Another bad stage would go to Rainbow Ride, which in concept is great. You are on a magic carpet riding on rainbows, who wouldn't love that? Except me. The execution is horrible because of one thing. Let me explain. So, Nintendo had a boardroom meeting and decided it was a smart idea to kick you out of a stage every single time you die, which adds superfluous and tedious game design for the only purpose of padding out the game's length. And Rainbow Ride is an excellent example of why this dated game design has aged so poorly. This stage is a slow slog of a fest where you aimlessly wait around and jump at the right time to avoid obstacles, and if you don't have a good perception of depth, then you gotta start all over again. For punishing a player for failing really be so severe? The answer, of course not. A good game should not punish players too harshly and to encourage mistakes as to master the gameplay and controls. The game wants you to get all of these stars on the first try, and for long ass stages like Rainbow Ride, it can be a real pace breaker getting sent back to Peach's Castle again. On a more positive note, the stage that comes before this, Tick-Tock Clock, is a personal favorite of mine. I totally get if this stage annoys you. I mean, it faces the same problems as Rainbow Ride, where if you make one mistake, then you will be punished. And while that is true, there are 2 notable asterisks in that claim. Number 1, when you die in Rainbow Ride, you are donezo. There's no coming back. In Tick-Tock Clock, most of the time I will fall to lower platforms, so while it's still annoying, I don't completely have to start from square one. And 2, the platforming is much more fun and fair than Rainbow Ride, which is why I like this stage a lot more. I also like the theme. You're traveling up a clock. How is that not fun? Another great stage is Whomp's Fortress. This stage is a simple climb to the top, but unlike Tall Tall Mountain, Whomp's Fortress is much shorter and warrants itself to more mistakes as you can easily get back to the swing of things. And like Tick-Tock Clock, it is filled just with fun platforming challenges which allows the player to really get around the stage in unconventional ways of high mastery. Then of course, Bob-omb Battlefield, a fun playground that serves as a great first level to this game. Even the missions are well put together. You'll have to fight a boss early on, race this Koopa Troopa, which really makes you want to learn the moves quicker as you'll want to long jump and triple jump to beat him. And then the NPCs, you get to talk and interact with. How fun. But speaking of bosses, they are super forgettable. I mean, okay, we have King Bob-omb, which is good, and this Whomp, but aside from that, what else? I think a problem is simply because of this game's open-ended nature. You could easily play this game without encountering most of the bosses, and if you do encounter a boss, well, it's just a joke. These guys are painfully easy, and it's as simple as throwing the old ticking time bomb 3 times, trick the walking, living, breathing cement, jump on Wiggler's head 3 times. It feels like they didn't even try. One last last note. Bowser. Spoiler warning, Bowser is the final boss of this game. No! You fight Bowser 3 times in this game, and each time gets progressively harder. I'll only be talking about the final fight, which by the way, the level that precedes this fight was very well put together. So basically, Bowser, me, gets bombed once and then... Oh no. Bowser just decided he can break the laws of physics and destroy the ground below him. He also sounds like a cat for some reason. But when you beat Bowser, oh yes! This feeling right here is amazing. Everything has culminated to this, and then we are done, but not done with this review yet. The music. We have some of the most nostalgic tunes in gaming history, and while the tracks feel a lot more like, music, I do think the variety is lacking a bit. Like, does Rainbow Ride really need to use the same theme as the slide levels? This seems to be a trend in some of Koji Kondo's games. One notable example is Luigi's Mansion. In some of his works, not all, he goes for a quality over quantity, which I vastly prefer than having a forgettable soundtrack like this game, but I would have preferred just a bit more variety in the music department. And that's Super Mario 64. I have got to be honest, this one surprised me a bit. It's not a perfect game by any means, but for what it is, I can appreciate the innovations. Is it one I see myself going back to often? Probably not, as I have no nostalgia attached to this game, but I can see myself every few years giving it a boot up, especially since it's on modern hardware that would make it going back to the game much easier. Wait, what's with the music? I thought we weren't doing these anymore. No, stop. We aren't doing these anymore. I'm sorry. Super Mario Sunshine came out on the Nintendo GameCube in 2002, not as a launch title, rather releasing a year later to a collective woo. Over time, this game's reputation has been very, very mixed, which I feel like is sugarcoating it. Many people either like or dislike this game for specific reasons. Whether it's the mechanics it introduces or general unpolished feel, is Super Mario Sunshine any good in 2020? Well, let's start off with the story. Mario's going on vacation. The last time this happened, things went beautifully, didn't it? Mario, the princess, and a couple of toads, including Old Man McGucket right here, are relaxing as they set arrival on Isle Delphino. And are you ready, viewers, to hear this? We already have a problem on our hands. Obviously, this game has been upgraded to a 16:9 aspect ratio. Hooray! But the problem is that the original was in 4:3. So, for the cutscenes, they had to do the unthinkable.
How should we get the cutscenes to be 16:9 for Super Mario 3D All-Stars? I know, we could remaster the cutscenes. No, you imbecile, I have a much more cost-effective approach. Perfect. 16:9. No. What are you doing? Now some of the image is cut off when you stretch it like that. Do you want to lose your job? I don't even work here. I work at GameStop for some reason. Oh, well, you're fired.
The Simpsons on Disney Plus had the same fate, and so does this game. Also, the cutscenes themselves look a bit washed out as they are converting standard definition to HD, as these are pre-rendered and not in-game, which blows because these cutscenes are so well produced. Did I mention I lie a lot?
What's this icky paint-like goop? It's moving!
Now, boys, don't touch that stuff.
Hey, someone's coming!
The guilty party sits among us.
Oh boy, is this really painful to look at now. There is voice acting in this Mario game. I cannot believe those are words that just left my mouth. It is bad and only holds up in an ironic way. So, after Old Man McGucket and Mario talk, Mario walks for about 10 seconds and encounters this thing, Flood, the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dowsing Device. My oh my, Nintendo was really pulling out the big boy vocabulary for this one. This is the main gimmick of Sunshine, and this is where controversy starts. Players just didn't understand how Mario evolved into becoming a janitor. We get to use Flood quite quickly in actual gameplay as we enter Delphino Plaza. Oh, by the way, before this, Mario is thrown into custody. This is a Mario game that came out in 2002. Mario has been framed for polluting Isle Delphino with paint-like goop, and now Mario has to clean it up and collect the shine sprites that will remove the darkness from the Isle. But anyways, Delphino Plaza. This is a super fun hub world and a massive upgrade from Peach's Castle. I still like and appreciate Peach's Castle for what it is. I still think going inside the castle and finding secrets is is a fun time, but obviously you're restricted by walls. But setting the hub world outside leaves so much more of a playground just to mess around in. Talk with some Piantas, ride on Yoshi, all of the works. Speaking of Yoshi-Sar Manchakoopas, he makes his first playable 3D appearance in this game, and the controls are pretty similar to those of the 2D games. Also, a super small but nice detail is just like in Super Mario World, the music gets bongos added to them when you ride on Yoshi. My only complaint is that you barely use him in the levels. You'll use him most in Delphino Plaza, which just seems like a huge missed opportunity. So on to the gameplay itself, starting with the main attraction, Flood. I land on the spectrum of liking Flood. He brings a lot of versatility to the game. Platforming and enemies are designed around Flood, and the controls aren't as bad as people say they are in my opinion. Though they didn't bother changing the X button on screen from the GameCube looking button. Oh, but Danerade, that would require too much work. Going into the files and editing textures from their original state? Okay, then why they do just that with Super Mario 64 on that title screen? Flood also has different nozzles that change the abilities Mario can use. You have the standard spray, which will always stay no matter what other nozzle you use. Then you have the hover nozzle, which is exactly what it sounds like it does, lets you hover, but the hover nozzle will most likely be your go-to nozzle. The turbo nozzle blasts you in a horizontal direction and lets you run fast, Sonic fast. Then finally the rocket nozzle, which blasts you up high in the air for those hard to reach rooftops. The addition of nozzles is a nice addition, though just like with the Yoshis, they are heavily underutilized. Like yeah, they usually appear in most stages, but unless you are 100%ing, the base game and its puzzles rarely use them. Another missed opportunity for sure. But while we are on the topic of Flood, what other power-ups does this game have? The other power-ups are Flood and that's it. I think that's a major problem people have with this game, is that if you do not like Flood, then you are bound to not like the whole game, as that is your one, quote, power-up. Now that we have talked about the basics, I want to get into stages themselves, and oh boy, this is where we start encountering some problems. There are only 7 of them. Now, if that doesn't sound like a lot, that's because it isn't. However, I will give them this. These levels change up a lot more between missions. In 64, the stages would barely change when collecting one star to the next, but in Sunshine, there are much more noticeable changes that can alter the overall layout of the stage. We start off pretty well with Bianco Hills, and this already illustrates the graphical leap forward with the game compared to 64. The colors, the models, animations, even visual effects like the water are quite nice looking. I do think a lot of the visuals were rushed. I mean, Luigi's Mansion came out a year before this with much higher poly counts, advanced lighting, and such. But what makes Super Mario Sunshine still look nice, especially in widescreen 1080p, are the colorful textures and environments. Bianco Hills isn't too interesting from a designer's perspective, but doesn't have anything inherently wrong with it, so it makes it pretty good. Also, this is PD Piranha's first debut, and his on-screen appearance is actually funny. Rico Harbor is a good stage as its moving construction parts does wonders in introducing the player to becoming more comfortable with the hover nozzle. The stage looks small initially, but exploring all of the nooks and crannies was a really fun time. Plus, I feel like that describes a lot of Super Mario Sunshine. Its open nature and exploratory approach, even more than 64, just adds to that adventure aspect. But I want to talk about the camera. They went and gave the player complete control, which sounds awesome on paper, but in execution can be tiresome. Man, sometimes in this game, it's like no matter what I do, I am destined to lose. It's very awkward and makes deaths feel like it was the game's fault and not mine. And from a polishing standpoint, this camera fails as it consistently would pass through walls, and sure, Mario has an outline indicating where he is, but this seems like a lazy fix rather than refining the camera. Okay, back to the stages themselves. Gelato Beach is a pretty forgettable stage in my opinion. One issue I have with the set pieces in this game is the overall reliance on water and sand. Like, yeah, we are on vacation, an island for crying out loud, but would it really have killed the developers to come up with some more unique locales? Though 2 highlights I want to point out include the Wiggler boss, which is a far step up from the weakling that was this thing in 64. And speaking of bosses, this game has a boatload more of them. In 64 there were bosses, but they were either incredibly easy or could be avoided entirely. Sunshine has a far greater variety of them, from PD Piranha, this giant Wiggler, this Stingray, Robo Bowser, quite a wide selection. They are not all winners, but I really do appreciate the amount of them, as designing any boss can be quite an undertaking. But while we are on the topic of this Wiggler boss specifically, something that has always been very Super Mario Sunshine-y in my eyes is the character designs. This Wiggler here looks quite different from what we normally associate with them, especially the color palette. The other enemies like Bob-ombs and Boos look very different from the standardized designs that we would see in other games like New Super Mario Bros. And even Super Mario Galaxy. One last last highlight of this stage was the sandbird. Taking a ride on top of this giant moving bird while collecting red coins, how cool. We are still talking about stages, right? Peanut Park is considered by many to be the best stage in this game because of its fun concept and it being set in a theme park. And, I don't like Peanut Park. It just has to come down to the fact that this stage is so broken. The collision detection is discombobulated across the board. There are so many missions in this stage that made me want to just give up and stop. Something distinct about this stage though is that we get some more story reveals that thickens the plot. And trust me, it's a huge reveal. So through the game, this weird looking reflective Shadow Mario has been pissing around and you typically chase him down and then he begins to cry and pow about how Mario is stupid and whatnot. We know the paint has to do something with him as an opening cutscene shows him stealing Peach. You go get him and save Peach, but still chase and go get him, just casually leaving the princess to fend for herself alone again. So go find him and oh my god, a Mecha Bowser? I enjoy the idea of this boss fight as you're on a roller coaster and fight this giant beast as bullet bills are headed your way. You wanna know what ruins a lot of this awesome fight? And more specifically, aiming FLUDD to send rocket missiles at giant Robo Bowser always felt super clunky and too sensitive. When I'm about to shoot, I got a loop-de-loop and get completely thrown off my course. Still a fun boss though. Okay, so beat this thing, and then this is it. Shadow Mario is about to reveal himself. This is the climax of the plot right here. It's my son!
Yeah, Papa told me all about it. He told me my mama got kidnapped by a bad man named Mario. So you're Bowser's son? So I came here to rescue her.
Your voice is a disgrace, I'm disowning you. So yep, Shadow Mario is actually Bowser's little offspring, and he thinks Peach is his mama.
Mama, Peach? I'm your mama?
This scene always confused me. Why would Peach be so confuzzled whether this little abomination is something she gave birth to? Also, when Junior does an impression of his dad, me.
He said,
Mario's a bully, he never fights fair.
he said,
Junior, you gotta try to outsmart Mario.
That's the second reason I want to disown you. So this reveal is kinda lackluster as it alleviates a lot of tension between the player and Shadow Mario. Every time after this reveal and I was chasing Shadow Mario, which they still play this up to be all mysterious, I just think, oh, I'm chasing a fat, ugly little turtle. Really brings down the stress when you know that you are chasing Bowser's little incompetent offspring. Serena Beach has the infamous Manta Ray boss fight. It's okay. And going inside the hotel itself, oh god. Many levels in this stage are cryptic and don't leave many hints on what to do, which leads to frustrating moments that annoy the player, that simply drag the game's playing time, aimlessly running around figuring what to do. It's not all bad though. You fight against King Boo. First, notice the weird design, especially comparing it to the already established King Boo design that only came out a year before this game, and second, it's probably the most redeeming factor in this stage. But the boss fight itself, King Boo spins a slot machine and the goal is to get 3 fruits in a row. Pick up this hot chili pepper, which isn't a fruit mind you, and throw it at King Boo's mouth as he starts spitting out literal fire from the hotness of the pepper. From there, just throw a fruit at him, bam, collateral damage. Note to self, if you are ever attacked by a spirit, just throw fruit at them. Noki Bay is next, and oh boy, I hope you like more water. Access to the stage has always been weird to me. You just look up at the sky, then bam, Noki Bay. I guess it's a reference to the same Easter egg in 64, but it seemed like the developers didn't know how to get Mario access to Noki Bay, so they just made him look at the bright light. Kinda weird. The stage itself is, is some more water. Gotta be honest, the idea of this stage is probably the least inspired, since it's the same thing you've been getting the entire game. This stage always felt like filler that doesn't have a lot of events that I can remember. Well, except for this big boy. And that's kind of a huge problem that I have been trying to hint at through talking about each stage. The game really loses steam as you go on. Like, think about it, Bianco Hills, Rico Harbor, and Gelato Beach are all pretty fine stages, fun in their own right, and then everything else afterwards is just not as sharp. This, in my opinion, is also prevalent in the amount of shines and their associated missions. 8 shines in each stage, unlike Super Mario 64's 6 stars. You are only required to accumulate 7 of the 8 shines in each stage, but by the 6th shine and onwards, the devs just kinda ran out of ideas or time and just threw together the same mission structures. Red coins, chase Shadow Mario, race this boy. Now you might be thinking, well, if there's a max of 120 shines and 7 times 7 is 49 shines, even including the extra shine in each stage raises the number to 56. Well, not only does the game have plenty of bonus shines, let's say in the stages, but also and Delphino Plaza, which is nice. The game introduces blue coins. Yeah, see, they took the red coins that changed the color and made a whole gimmick out of it. You'll find these scattered around, and every 10 blue coins equates to 1 shine. This is just filler no matter how you slice it. Blue coins take no time to develop for. Many of the times they all fall under the same puzzles, which calling them puzzles is an insult to all puzzles. Walk over one in a tricky spot, blue coin. Squirt at this M graffiti, boom, blue coin. And if you do the daunting task of going for 100%, you have to find 240 coins. That number is way too high. If blue coins were limited to maybe 30 or 40, and each shine only costs 3 or so coins, that would make finding one much more rewarding and would let the developers make each blue coin be hidden in more distinct ways. But no, the developers had to pad out the game by stuffing the game full of them. And sometimes they weren't even trying. Like really, look at how many blue coins are in front of me right now. Pianta Village, our final stage. This is a village that's just kinda there. And this was at the point in the game when I truly realized something. It's been leading up to this point. I'm nearly complete with the game. I realize that this game is really unfair. I've already explained why, but I think I can illustrate a more straightforward example. In this game lies many bonus stages that have Mario without FLUDD. These stages can be some of the best or some of the worst. Just doing pure platforming is always a joy, and some of these can be complex, but some of these areas just don't really like me. There's one where Piantas chuck you straight behind them for no reason. Like, I don't know why this mechanic never appears elsewhere, but whatever. On my first run though, this happened. Do you see what I mean when I say that this game has a very unpolished and clunky feel to it? When you collect the last 49th required shine sprite, Shadow Mario floods Delphino Plaza, which comes out of nowhere. Seriously, I was playing the game and it was just like, oh yeah, Delphino Plaza was flooded while you were gone, Mario. Also, everyone probably died. So chase the little obese turtle into the cave that conveniently has its path open now, and welcome to Corona Mountain. Sound familiar? So this final level is quite infamous as this boat is crazy sensitive and the directions you have to point your squirt nozzle is janky, but I got past it first try. If you know that you have to be patient going in, you should be fine. Just skyrocket your way onto these clouds and then...
Rated M for mature.
Wahaha! The water's great, hey, Junior?
Sure is, Papa. Come on in, Mama Peach. Mario! You again? Don't you ever give up?
Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
So the final boss of the GameCube's third best-selling game takes place in a floating hot tub. The water also looks like gelatin. It just seems like they didn't want to animate Bowser's legs and made it this green, not as see-through color texture. Though Bowser's model does look really crisp. I feel like this could have been the model to a Wii game. We went from this to this. But yeah, giant bath in the sky, rocket jump to then ground pound on these corners that somehow are magically levitating this hot tub, and you win. So Bowser's scream sounds like it was done in one take. FLUDD dies apparently.
No!
And Delphino Island is back to normal. That ain't COVID friendly right there. Bowser, I mean me, and my son talk for a bit about wanting to kidnap Peach again.
When I'm bigger... I wanna fight that Mario again.
That's my boy. Well put, son.
And the Toads fix FLUDD, and he magically is alive because God forbid if we kill in a Mario game. We couldn't do it in Sticker Star with Kirsty, and we can't do it again here. And that's Super Mario Sunshine, a jumbled mess to say the least. Whenever I hear people talk about this collection, they point out that these are all some of the greatest games of all time. And I've been trying my best to be on the fence with my opinion and not revealing my initial thoughts when I started talking. So what do I think? Is Super Mario Sunshine worth the hierarchy of a title like that on the same podiums as Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Galaxy? Well, no. This game is a buggy, rushed mess, and holding it in such high regard, in my opinion, is just plain asinine. Just look at Super Mario Sunshine's most infamous level, the Pachinko Machine. This level has some of the worst physics I have ever seen in a video game, and this was approved by Nintendo. I did beat it though somehow. Sure, if you can look past the jankiness of it and can really appreciate the creative liberties it took, then that's fine. I don't think this game is hot garbage like other people make it out to be. I like FLUDD and Isle Delphino, but I just can't stand understand the fact that nostalgia seems to get in people's way, and I stand by the strong belief that the greatest games of all time shouldn't have to have been played when it first came out to get the full extent of it now. If it is so great, then I should be able to see the impact and creative genius all these years later. I simply don't see that in Super Mario Sunshine. This is a fine enough game, but it doesn't hold up to snuff as other Nintendo first-party offerings on the GameCube that includes Luigi's Mansion, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Pikmin, Metroid Prime, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, Animal Crossing, Kirby Air Ride, Chibi Road, The Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and many more. If you want a weird deep dive in the black sheep of Mario's 3D past, filled with very distinct and unique gameplay and world, then go for it. But if you are heading and expecting one of Nintendo's all-time greats, I would highly recommend you look elsewhere. No, this is not happening. Super Mario Galaxy is unanimously considered to be the best of the three in this package. Not only is it the best of the three, but is also considered one of the best games of all time. But this game is much more modernized and does not tackle the same dated game design philosophies that plagued Super Mario 64. With this in mind, the main question I want to answer is, does this game deserve the love it has? Is this an overloved Wii game that people are gripping onto? Well, to start out with, what other place than the logo? So you see, if you take every letter with sparkles beside it, I'm happy. The story is a massive departure from previous games. Bowser kidnaps Peach. Okay, there is a little more to it than just that. Mario is invited for something. Maybe a little more than cake this time, I'd like to think. So Mario arrives all giddy as can be as the Princess Peach of the Mushroom Kingdom invited me for apocalyptic takeover. So Mario arrives and I'm here to crash the party with, oh my god. In Super Mario Sunshine, I mean Bowser, just wasn't a threat. Not only did we never see him till the very end, which kills off any dramatic tension that might have been formed, and remember, the only tension messed up when they revealed my son too early. So Bowser, as an epic orchestral version of the Super Mario Bros. 3 airship theme plays, basically takes Peach's castle and flies away. Mario is completely whipped out until he lands on a planet with a new species called the Lumas. The Lumas introduce Mario to Rosalina, a new, quite mysterious character who tells Mario that we must travel around the universe to different galaxies collecting enough stars to get to the center of the universe, i.e. where Bowser is holding Peach hostage. The lighting and cinematography is much more intense with more exaggerated camera angles, and the fact that we see exposition is a joy to say the least. My only problem is the same as Sunshine, where the upscaling looks quite washed out and a bit muddied. In some cases, it actively looks worse than Sunshine due to this opening's use of much darker colors. The bright colors of Sunshine were really able to save its cutscenes, kind of. Though because the Wii could display in 16:9 format, they didn't have to stretch the game's cutscenes like in Sunshine, so you are getting the full image. Now, while on the topic of looks, this game dramatically holds up as the greatest out of the three, which was to be expected, but hot golly does this game look so much better than its predecessor. I am simply quite impressed, as from a technical level, the Wii was not much more powerful than the GameCube, but this game really utilizes the hardware to its full potential. I want to point out that this is the first 3D Mario game that runs at 60 frames per second, which is greatly appreciated. This game does not need a remake and looks great as it is. It's also nice to see fully modernized designs of Mario and its world. Welcome to the Comet Observatory. This game's hub world per se. It's a spectacle to see, though lacks the depth of other locales like Delphino Plaza. I mean, I get why. We are in space after all. It would be quite odd to design an elaborate hub world in the middle of nowhere, but they did the best they could. You can talk to Lumas, discover a couple of secrets, and then Rosalina. I really like Rosalina and wish she'd appear in other Mario games. The hub world is used to access galaxies. These galaxies are much smaller than those in 64 and Sunshine, but Jesus, there are a lot more of them than I had anticipated. And these galaxies galaxies follow a different formula than the one before it, which leads to whether someone likes or dislikes this game, more linearity. In Super Mario Galaxy, it is much more of a straight line rather than explore like in 64 or Sunshine. Stars are usually found at the end of the level as Mario hops from planet to planet. They did this as a huge planet would just make the player lost. Having smaller areas was definitely a helping hand to those less experienced. You have to keep in mind, this console's user base consisted of 40% grandmas that bought the console for Wii Sports Bowling and Wii Sports Bowling only. Come on. Oh. And sure, these galaxies are much easier to develop for than, let's say, the open worlds of 64 and Sunshine, but don't completely write them off. Every galaxy still needed to have some unique theme and stage gimmicks, enemies, power-ups. My point is that there is still a considerable amount of thought put into each galaxy, which is why I pointed out how impressed I am and how many there are, especially coming out of the disappointed 7 stages of Sunshine. I would also like to point out how the developers use the setting of the game very effectively. The gravity physics in this game are smooth as butter. It's almost sad in a way, as it's so subtle and smooth I hardly notice it, which is a testament to Nintendo's seal of quality sometimes. And one of my biggest gripes with both 64 and Sunshine has been eradicated. It doesn't kick you out of a level when you die. Like, is this rocket science? Did somebody at Nintendo realize this is much faster and a helpful hand to the player than other games? Another change to the gameplay was the camera. I complained about Sunshine's camera being much more on the borderline of atrocious, while Galaxy adopts a fixed camera. This seems like a lame idea, however most stages have a set camera movement that doesn't warrant moving it around so much. So while it feels like you are in less control, I can appreciate and say the camera is solid and, well, functions. But we have got to talk about the star of the show, the galaxies themselves. Gussie Garden Galaxy. The music is so epic, it's so cool. You get to ride the wind as you stare into the distance, a question mark shaped planet because that makes sense. Don't question it, it's literally a question mark. The ideas are just oozing out on this one. There are so many little things to do. Honey Hive Galaxy. You get to interact with a whole bee species with the whole galaxy being themed around it. The set pieces are great, and Bee Mario, oh yes. Clinging onto honey patches to traverse across, who knew the world needed Mario as a bee? It is also one of the most visual, distinct, and appealing levels, which is saying a lot since the game already looks so good. This was the best bee representation in 2007. Sorry, Bee Movie, you missed the mark by one day. Good at Galaxy. Oh, just get out of here. Perfectly implementing the mechanics of traveling around each planet, with one side having a bright and vibrant color palette, while the other is much more rugged and darkening. You get a good feel for the physics and what's the rest to come in the game, and the music in the stage nails the orchestra feel. This sets the stage perfectly for the grand adventure up ahead. Loop-de-Loop Galaxy. Some people don't like this galaxy because of its slightly more difficult and its heavy reliance on motion controls. I actually kind of like this one, and it's a nice change of pace. Plus, I love penguins. When I walk into the galaxy, the first thing I'm greeting with is, hey! This is Penguin Paradise. I walk up to this big boy as he asks me a very personal question. Are you a surfer too? Well, I don't condone lying, but I will say yes to this one time. I don't want to be shamed by fictional penguins. The part I love about the penguins is the fact that they are a species and appears in other galaxies. It makes these places feel so much more lived in. And speaking of other galaxies with penguins, Beach Bowl Galaxy. You get to swim with penguins listening to an awesome tune in the background. That's fun. And the final galaxy I'll specifically point out is the Toy Time Galaxy. You feel like you're in a child's room with all these huge objects that formulate the design and layout of the stage. It's so fun traversing a giant robot and destroying it in the process so good. I was shocked at the galaxies I personally didn't like. What, there was like 2? This desert one and this one that focused around a dreadnought. At least Super Mario Galaxy taught me a new word today. Now a couple of points I want to talk about are 1, the difficulty of this game leans a lot more on the easy side. Not saying it has to be hard, and in no way detracts from the game, but this is definitely one of the more easy Mario games. And adding to that fact is how many freaking 1-ups are littered throughout all these levels. There are honestly way too many, and devalues finding one in my opinion. Lumas will sometimes appear in the levels and give you a helping hand, but another type of Luma, named the Hungry Luma, serves a different function. These Lumas, if you feed them enough star bits, will burst with, quote, snacky happiness. Alright, time to feed the mad lad himself. Alright, time to feed the mad lad himself. They transform into a launch star and also form a new planet that typically leads to a new star to be found. A pretty cute idea, but from an exploration aspect doesn't leave a lot of room. There are girl penguins in this game? 10 out of 10. When this collection got announced, one concern would be the transition of controls. Galaxy obviously relied very heavily on the Wii's motion and pointer, so how would that transfer over to Switch? Well, I must say I'm quite impressed. Both the Joy-Cons and Pro Controller have a gyroscope built in which gives them the same effect as the Wii, just without the sensor bar aiding the controller through tracking. The downfall to the lack of a sensor bar is consistency, as the pointer will eventually trail off without anything to keep it in check. To combat this, Nintendo assigned the R button as a reset, and holy Jesus, this is how you do it. Sure, it can be a tad annoying to consistently have to reposition the pointer, but the controls work far better than I was expecting. Another change is assigning the spin move to a button. Holy Jesus, this is how you do it. You can still shake the controller, but assigning it to a button just makes things feel more precise, especially for us Pro Controller users, as shaking the whole thing would just make the controller feel bulky, as its bigger size doesn't warrant itself as well to motion controls, which is why I resented the fact that Mario Odyssey's motion controls were required for certain moves, but assigning the spin to a button is such a nice addition. So which is it? The million-dollar question. Galaxy 1 or Galaxy 2? Well, I have never played Galaxy 2, and it wasn't featured in this collection, and oh, do I have some opinions about that to share momentarily. The one final, very strong aspect I would like to bring up are the bosses. They are very well executed in this game, and are another step up from Sunshine. King Caliente, you gotta smack the coconuts at him, and you can get to this intense back and forth until finally vanquish him. Oh yes! Mecha Leg. This thing is huge, and I have no idea how they made this into a platforming challenge. Boulder Guys, this one is my favorite. You use these boos which get this, explode, and then he grows giant hands and tries to crush you, and then you use more exploding boos and kill him, and then you go, let's go! Even Bowser Jr. gets in on the fun. What seems so innocent escalates so quickly. What's going on here? These bosses use the respective gameplay ideas from the galaxies they are associated with and expands them to be turned into a boss battle. The bosses themselves are full of charm, and the animations, visuals, sound design, character design, what a solid lineup. But then, it all culminates with Bowser. You climb up these steps and come face to face with him. The level leading up to this was one of the best in the game, a culmination of everything up to this point. Your platforming was put to the ultimate test, and now Mario has to meet Bowser to save the universe. So the music is pretty epic, and I like the format of this fight. It is a shame it is similar to other Bowser fights in this game. Despite that, it is still satisfying to knock Bowser around left and right, and then you get that final hit and you knock him out completely. This here, my friend, is pure joy. Bowser falls into the depths of the lava and is forever buried under the heat of the sun. Or so I thought until in this scene when he's standing again on hard ground. Like, how did he magically teleport from inside the sun to this sinking crater? Then Rosalina resets the universe and a brand new remixed galaxy is then made, combining together other galaxies and making new galaxies as well. And that was Super Mario Galaxy, a far better game in every regard than its two predecessors. Galaxy nails in its presentation and gameplay. Ideas are spewing out of every corner. The soundtrack is just so good. Please play this game. This is a masterpiece that needs to be played by every Nintendo fan. Well, these games sure had a lot in them worth talking about, but now I want to divert the attention to the actual collection itself. What distinguishes this game from other collections today? To start off, we must begin with the front, and Nintendo, let's talk. So they used the original art from the respective games and not new art. I would have preferred if they had one big art piece with a mashup of all three games, but no! They just smacked the box art of all three games and they called it a day. But it gets worse. The art has no room to breathe. Everything is so squished together. The artwork cannot be shown completely, and having Mario's arm get cut off every one of these photos just looks wrong. Why is it that all three of these lines have different thicknesses? So I challenged myself to make an even better looking box art. This only took me 45 minutes to make. It's not perfect, but the point was to make something quickly, yet better. Nintendo, if I can construct a better looking photo in under an hour, then we have some serious issues at our hand. And don't even get me started on the game cart. Why is it that the art is beside the ESRB rating? Does it really have to be off-centered like this? And it's even worse because in other countries it is actually centered. And then the end game HUD. Why is it so bland? I like the gold, but this looked like it was animated and programmed and all in one day. And why at the soundtracks down here, all they do is fill up space so it looks like there's more in this game than there really isn't. And worst of all, why does Mario 64 have widescreen in the opening but not in the game itself? And the jingle they use for this opening is from Super Mario Galaxy 2, which isn't even in this collection. I don't like this box art. So this collection, as I stated, has the noticeably absent Super Mario Galaxy 2. At first I wasn't too bummed since I was really excited just to play these three games, but I changed my mind after Exhibit A. After playing Galaxy, I really just wanted to play Galaxy 2, and not having it here just feels like a missed opportunity. And Exhibit B. With the soon arrival of 3D World coming to Switch, every single mainline console 3D Mario game will have been on Switch. It just feels incomplete. This collection does. There was little care for this being a celebration of Mario. Like what? We got the soundtracks that I can look up up on YouTube? What happened to artwork, interviews, scrapped ideas, the things that genuine Mario fans would like to want to know about? It would be so easy for Nintendo. They have all this old stuff locked away in a vault somewhere. There is no work required. And at the end of the day, this game is just 3 Mario 3D platformers in HD for $60. Now, Danerade, what games are in line of what you want? Well, Kirby's Dream Collection came out on the Wii, and it included 6 Kirby games, a museum going over Kirby's history, and even some episodes of the Kirby Right Back at You TV show. Aladdin and Lion King comes with every single conceivable version of the game that exists, and even beta versions that were shown at trade shows. Crash and Spyro got full-on remakes with fully redone graphics, sound, animations, and gameplay from the ground up. The original Super Mario All-Stars, which remade Mario 1, 2, 3, and Lost Levels on the Super Nintendo. I feel like Nintendo made this game with the same mindset as Pokemon. Sword and Shield are unanimously agreed to have lackluster gameplay and graphics compared to the others on previous Nintendo handhelds. But who cares, because the game sold like 1 billion copies. This game is such a safe bet, and let's face it, we all know it will sell well. And to make matters worse,
a limited run retail edition and a digital edition of the game will be available for a limited time until the end of March 2021. A limited run available for a limited time.
Well, suck it up, you dumbo. That's how capitalism works. Companies have the freedom to price and release their products in any way. Supply and demand, simple economics. This is what I would have said if I didn't also say the fact that what Nintendo is doing is putting a ticking time bomb on customers and urges those to pick up the copy before it permanently goes away. And yes, this does carry over to the digital version, which, why? For physical, I get it. Maybe they wanted to market this as a collector's piece, but also carrying over the deadline to digital just seems scummy. Despite all of this, these are games that are held in the hearts of many, and people have differing opinions on which one they enjoyed the most, which I think is really special, because at least one person has a close attachment to one of these games. This was Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a comprehensive deep dive of what it feels like to have never played any of these games. It was a fun ride, and I plan to revisit Galaxy and possibly 64 in the future. If you want to play these games in a convenient form factor at an okay price, then be sure to pick this up. However, the opposing side is, why don't I emulate this if I can get a better experience doing that? Well, emulation is a whole other topic I'd like to make into a video another day, but if you feel that way and you don't think you'll get your money's worth, or you already have these games and have played them before, I might hold back. Though let's face it, you're going to get a copy anyways, as you might change your mind, so get it before the deadline, you stupid Nintendo fanboy.